Is up, YouTube? It's your boy Mills, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of $50 upgrades, the show where I give to you my proposed $50 upgrades for the precons in question. And today we're taking a look at Limit Break, the new Final Fantasy precon headed up by Cloud X Soldier. This is a Naya precon, as Cloud is a 5-mana Naya commander with haste. It says when Cloud enters, we're going to attach an equipment we control to it, and then whenever Cloud attacks, we draw a card for each equipped creature we control that's attacking, and then if Cloud has power 7 or greater, we create 2 treasures. Cloud has a ton of value on his card, and the precon does a really great job of giving us good equipment and good creatures to also have alongside Cloud to get equipped so we can draw more cards and get treasures. Truthfully, there's a lot of stuff from the main set I'd love to bring into Cloud's deck. And as we'll talk about as we go through, some of the new equipment is just going to be very expensive money-wise. Not mana-wise, money-wise. And so my goal here for the $50 is to try our best to increase synergy, make the deck hit a little bit harder, and then I'll give you some suggestions that maybe what I would add if you're looking to up the budget by a little bit more. But I want to say a quick thank you to the channel members. Thank you so much for watching the videos. If you're interested in it, checking out our videos a little bit early for just $1 a month, consider checking it out down below. But all right, we'll walk through what we're looking to add. I'll show you really quickly what we're looking to remove, and then we'll talk about what I think is your next step adds. Annie Joins Up is a card from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, a set that I know a lot of people kind of overlook, but I think Annie Joins Up makes a ton of sense in this deck for its bottom ability. Of a triggered ability of a legendary creature we control triggers, it goes off an additional time. It'd be really easy just to look at this as, oh, well, Cloud's abilities are doubled up, which is great. That means Cloud would come in and be able to auto-attach 2 equipment if we play Annie Joins Up first. It also would mean whenever Cloud attacks, you would draw for each attacking creature twice and potentially make a chance to make up to 4 treasures. And that's huge, right? Not only that, but it does some damage when it comes in. I think Annie Joins Up is just nothing but an upside for this deck. And at minimum, it just gets you more draw and more treasures. Ardenn is a great example of a support creature we want in the deck. At the beginning of combat on our turn, we can attach any number of equipment we want to target player, or target permanent or player. This is really important because then we can just load Cloud up with everything we have, get it in, getting attacking if we want to go that, if we really want to go that Voltron commander damage route, which I think is the easiest way you're going to be able to defeat people in this deck. Although just the raw damage you can put out will certainly help. I was kind of surprised that Blackblade wasn't in the deck. I can understand why. Blackblade is not a Final Fantasy thing. It's also a named thing, so I can understand why they probably wouldn't want to reprint it. But Blackblade is probably one of the better equipment options we have that is not very pricey. Just giving the creature +1/+1 for each land we control is huge. And remember, the Cloud can come in and auto-attach itself, meaning that as long as you had the 5 lands to play Cloud is now a 9/9 with Blackblade Reforged and is going to automatically trigger its own ability. Caduceus is another equipment I really like, giving the equipped creature lifelink. And if we have 30 or more life, that creature gets +5/+5, indestructible, and prevent all damage will be dealt to it. I really like this as an equipment because that means we're going to be gaining the life back. Like, not only if we hit somebody, but if somebody chump blocks Cloud, at least we're still going to get the life back. We're going to keep our life total fairly high because the biggest risk we have as an equipment or a Voltron deck is that you're going to swing and just be wide open some of the times. And what I like about this is you're going to kind of get the life back, and then you're not as wide open as you think. You're going to be able to survive those crackbacks. Codsworth says that commanders we own have Ward 2, or control have Ward 2. Love it. Going to help protect Cloud a little bit. Can dap for double white to help play equipment, which is really nice, actually. That's going to be really helpful. Or it can tap to just put an equipment on a creature we control at sorcery speed. Again, both of those are huge abilities and very helpful, as they can both either help us get more equipment down or help us get something on Cloud for cheaper. The new Firion is something that, in messing around with playtesting in this and the full budget version for Cloud, which is going to be up on the channel now if you're interested in seeing something a little bit without the budget restrictions, Firion's one of those cards that I think is going to end up being really good for every equipment in deck. So all creatures we control have haste. Again, not going to matter as much for Cloud, right, because it comes in with haste. But it says whenever a non-token equipment we control enters, we get to make a copy of it, except the copy has its equip cost 2 less to activate, and then we get rid of it at the next upkeep. So some of these equipment are going to come down and get even cheaper to equip, and we'll be able to equip them that turn and take real advantage of them. Obviously, the only problem with Firion is legendary equipment like Caduceus, but a lot of equipment in our deck are not legendary, so it's not really going to matter. They can come in, be a little bit cheaper to equip, and then hopefully take real advantage of getting them in and getting the damage in to our opponents. Forge Anew is a great enchantment from Lord of the Rings. Whenever it comes in, we can bring in equipment from our graveyard back to the battlefield. We can equip abilities at instant speed on our turn, which is huge. It's really helpful sometimes to see where the chips lie. Maybe you have the mana to equip one more thing, but you want to see where your opponent's block before you get your things on that, which is pretty great. And then the first equip we would do each turn costs 0. Again, a very useful ability to attach the right thing first for cheap, right? So that you have enough mana to equip everything else or move anything around right the way you need to. Probably one of my favorite equipment to have out when Cloud comes in is Helm of the Host. This is an equipment that says at the beginning of combat on your turn, you create a token that's a copy of the creature, except it isn't legendary, and the token gets haste. This is really fun for Cloud because remember, Cloud gets equipment attached to it when it comes in. Meaning that if I have just Cloud, Helm of the Host, and another equipment out, Helm of the Host makes a copy of Cloud. The copy of Cloud gets that other equipment. Now I have 2 Clouds that are both equipped. I'm drawing 4 cards. And if either of them can get to 7 power, right, then I'm making treasures too. But again, now we're just churning through cards because we have all these quick creatures. And then remember, the Helm of the Host token doesn't go away. Now you just have another Cloud that you can use on future turns to take advantage of things that are going on. Kellan, on its adventure side, lets us go get an equipment of our choice and put it into our hand, a really nice ability. And on its regular side, it's a 2/2 with double strike that gives each other creature we control a buff where you get 1 for each equipment attached to it. This is a really nice ability because then Kellan can help buff the rest of our creatures, even if they don't have equipment attached to them. And Kellan just can become a threat with double strike if we need it to be on its body. Leyline Axe can start the game on the battlefield if we have it in an opening hand. Otherwise, it's a 4 mana equipment to equip 3 to give a creature double strike and trample. Again, huge when we have a win con and commander damage, 21 damage to a player, we can knock them out. This is helpful with Cloud because double strike and trample can go a long way. It stops cheap chump blocks from not getting our damage through. Double strike's a huge ability. You know, creature being a 7/7 or an 8/8 with double strike is a lot of damage to an opponent, and it's going to really help us get more of our damage through. Mage Slayer was an equipment I was kind of surprised it wasn't in the deck because it hasn't been reprinted in a while. But whenever a creature attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. So here you go. Cloud can just dome somebody for 6 or 7 or 8, depending on what it is it's attacking. Note that even though Mage Slayer is letting the creature that it's equipped to deal that damage won't count for commander damage. Remember, commander damage is only combat damage dealt to an opponent. But hey, if you can just take an opponent off the top for 9 damage before you even get into combat, I mean, it seems really useful to me. Masterwork of Ingenuity comes in as any copy of any equipment on the battlefield. It's here just to help you kind of double up on what you see. Masterwork's great for that, and it's going to allow you to get the copy of the key thing at the right time, right? So you can really hit hard against your opponents. Maul the Skyclaves, when it comes in, it can auto-attach to a creature you control, which is pretty cool. Gives that creature flying and first strike. Here's a good way to get Cloud in the air, give it some evasion, right? Get it to maybe hopefully can do some better damage. Sword of Vengeance gives the creature +2/+0 first strike, vigilance, trample, and haste. Again, first strike and trample mean its Cloud's going to hit pretty hard if it gets on it. Vigilance nice and helpful, so it can block as well. But first strike and double strike by that token are just great abilities. It's going to make sure that if somebody can block and trade with Cloud, they can't because we have first strike. Trample means that we can hopefully get over for some damage, making sure that our damage is always going through and we're at least doing something to our opponents. Thran Power Suit may not look like a lot. A creature gets +1/+1 for each equipment attached to it, and Ward 2. It may not look like a lot, but the Ward 2 at minimum is well worth the cost, protecting that creature a little bit. And once you have 3 or 4 equipment to it, now that's an extra +4/+4 right on that creature. That could be a big difference between Cloud being an 8 or 11 with double strike, right? You can really see the difference there, what Thran Power Suit can do when it comes to souping up that creature. Well, in order to add cards to a deck, we gotta remove. And this is the section I always say in these upgrade videos where I'm not saying that these are the worst cards in the deck. I'm not saying that these are the cards you should take out no matter what. These are just the cards that I took out in order to make room for the cards that I put in. Remember, the goal of this $50 upgrade is not to take out objectively bad cards and put in objectively good cards. The goal is to take cards out and put in cards that I think are going to end up being more synergistic into the deck. I will, as we go through these removals, talk about cards that I really like that maybe we should think about coming back in. And it's, of course, your discretion in any decisions you make to your deck, and what you want to cut and what you don't. Elena, Turk Recruit is actually a card I like the idea of. When it comes in, you get to bring in a store card from your graveyard back to your hand. Meaning we can get in equipment from our graveyard back to our hand. But other than that, I don't love it. There's better utility creatures we can have in the deck, things that help cheapen our equips, things that make our creatures better. There's just so many of them. And Elena, although it looks nice on its enters ability, just doesn't do that. I like the idea of Hellkite Tyrant stealing our opponent's artifacts, and if we have 20 more artifacts, we win the game. But truthfully, I think the slot's just better for another equipment, something we can use. Hero's Blade was one I hated to take out because it has Cloud in the art and it's this big sword. But truthfully, other than the fact that it auto-equips when a legend comes in, I just think there's way better equipment that we have access to. As much as I like it, I think we want to make sure that every equipment we see is useful on our board. I really like the Soldier Military program, getting to put a counter on Cloud every turn, which is nice, but truthfully, I think it's better for a soldier deck, and Cloud is more of a, modified Voltron-y style list that just, it's not there for us. Same thing with things like Zakfair. I love the idea of it being able to sacrifice itself to give a creature indestructible and put its counters on that creature and put anything that was attached to it onto Cloud. Again, I get it. I like the idea of it, but I think that it's one of those things where we need to just make sure that every card that we're seeing is doing something for what our deck wants to do. And my hope is the ads that we have put in are going to lead to more synergy and better, overall games. We're still staying in bracket 2 with our ads, but I think just enough of the ads we're putting in are going to help make the deck just to go a teeny bit better. But getting into the next steps, there's a lot of options of things we can add, and it just depends on the budget you want to put in. Truthfully, if you have another $100 that you want to put into the deck, I think both the Clouds that came out in the main set are well worth it. The mono white Cloud goes and gets you an equipment of your choice from your deck. And then as long as Cloud isn't equipped, and if the ability of Cloud or an equipment attached to it triggers additional time, this could just become another threat to your opponents, as you have basically another threat that you can soup up. Same thing with the Boros Cloud from the starter deck. As long as it's equipped, it has double strike and indestructible, and any equipped abilities that target this Cloud cost 2 less to activate. Both of these, again, just present other options for you to equip things to in order for them to become threats. I think I like the Boros Cloud a little bit better. I like the search on Cloud, the mono white Cloud, but truthfully, it really cares about things more attached to it, whereas I think the Boros Cloud just becomes a real threat to your opponents. And that starter deck may be more as well worth the price to pick it up. A lot of times what happens to those starter decks, if you look at Bloomburrow, for example, Bria, the face commander of the Izzet deck, the Otters deck, basically ended up being worth the price of the starter deck. So if you're going to pick up this Cloud, I'd honestly recommend you just pick up the starter decks. You're going to get Cloud, and you're going to get anything else that's in the starter deck, and it's probably going to end up being worth the cost. As far as equipment for the main set, there's a couple really huge ones. You have A-Tier and Pre-Win. This is a 6-mana equipment that attaches for 5 and makes the creature a base power and toughness XX, where X is your life total. So by base, right, we mean instead of the printed numbers that are on the card, it becomes that. You can still buff it with your equipment, so you can still buff it with abilities. That is huge, especially if you have Trample, Flying, any of these abilities. A Tier and Pre-Win can become a really big threat to your opponents, and it's going to stay a pretty expensive equipment. What's also probably going to stay a pretty expensive equipment is Buster Sword. Buster Sword is one of those equipment that may not look like a lot. It only gives +3/+2. But if the equipped creature hits a player, you draw a card and gets you just cast something for free with mana value less than or equal to the damage that was dealt. This is going to let you cheat in so many equipment and creatures and good spells that I think Buster Sword's going to probably hold its cost for a long time. And of course, it makes sense. It's thematic, Buster Sword and Cloud. I like the Wall Breaker. This is a card that whenever the creature attacks, if it's the first combat of the turn, you get an extra combat and you get to untap each attacking creature. Again, multiple combats with our souped up creatures are just going to lead to more damage, better for us. And the hope is that you can start hitting hard. The nice thing about Hexplate Wallbreaker and some of the other equipment in our deck is it makes a token that it attaches itself to. So at minimum, we have a creature that could do this for us if need be. But obviously, remember, Cloud can auto-equip it the turn it comes in, meaning Cloud, if it's out before Cloud, or, Cloud has to come back in, you potentially get 2 combats the turn Cloud comes down. I've always really liked Shadow Spear. Shadow Spear is an equipment that gives the creature +1/+1 trample and lifelink. Lifelink's a really fun ability gaining you life back as you're dealing damage. I think one of our biggest problems as an equipment deck is you're going to hit hard, but a lot of times you're going to leave yourself tapped out and your opponents are going to be able to swing back at you. What I like about these lifelink equipment is you might deal 20, but you're going to gain 20 back. You might deal 15, but you're going to gain 15 back. And Trample makes sure that your damage is just going to better hit through as you do it. The other nice thing about Shadow Spear is you can pay one to have your opponent's permanents lose hexproof and indestructible. And that's at instant speed. So someone plays a big board wipe and somebody responds with a way to give their things indestructible. You can take it away. If your opponents already have indestructible on them, you can remove that. You can remove hexproof. Shadow Spear is just an interesting equipment. It hasn't really been reprinted very often, but I think it's well worth the cost for it. I think it's easy to get blinded by the choices when you buy a first Precon. If this is your first Precon you bought into Magic, welcome into Commander. Welcome into what the fun this format can be. And my advice is just get on a resource like Scryfall. Start looking at equipment, seeing what's out there, what might look good in your deck. And not only that, but go onto a resource like EDH Rec. Look around at other equipment commanders that are in these colors, whether they be in red-white, whether they be in green-red. Go through all those color combinations, see what they're playing, and see if those cards will work in your deck. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you were intrigued by the ads that I put into my deck, and I will catch you in the next one.